If somebody were to ask you, who you are, bar, coffee shop, whatever, if they were to ask you that, what would you say the answer to it is?
Who am I? It's deep, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, I think I usually start by saying that I'm a mother. I have three children who are young adults now, and I would also be proud to say that I help parents get their children sleeping well. That's been my passion for the past 20 years, and I really feel like it is the foundation piece to a happy and healthy lifestyle.
No kidding, not just for children, but for everybody. They say like it doesn't
Everybody.
matter. Your exercise and diet it pales in comparison to the quality of your sleep. And I can use your help on this
Absolutely.
because I sometimes sleep like shit. I have a hard time getting to sleep, and then I wake up early because I'm excited and just busy all of the time. And so I'm curious. We can dive into some sleep strategies that you would recommend for a busy entrepreneur, for example. And
Sure, I
I
would
think
love
we can
to.
I think we can dive into some awesome value there. So where do I start? Let's say that I think it's relatively common. I've got issues falling asleep, and then once I wake up, I can't fall back asleep, and so I'll often go with maybe 5 or 6 hours, and it's
Mm.
noticeable in terms of cognitive ability. And so I'm wondering, where should I
Mhm.
start?
Well, yeah, 7.5 is kind of the cutoff that most experts will say you need to be kind of hitting that 7.5 hour mark at minimum. So, with adults, it's a lot of behavior and lifestyle changes that I'll ask them to make, which isn't always easy. We tend to be creatures of habit and we like our devices and we like our screen time. And so a lot of that plays a significant role in the quality of sleep we get each night. So I would say at minimum, just for a starting place, I like to call it the power down hour. So you would just like spend the hour before you plan to go to bed, just doing some other things, like maybe taking a shower, writing in a journal, listening to some music, reading a book, and just getting your mind and body prepared for the transition. Because it is like, when you think about it, it is a very significant transition. Like you're going to spend the next 8 hours asleep, which is the complete opposite for how you've spent the last, 16 hours of your day. So giving your body and brain preparation time is really important. And it's the same thing that I teach to parents about helping their kids get prepared for sleep with a bedtime routine.
What are the differences between a kid and an adult? Just curious.
I
Is it
mean, really nothing.
right?
It's
Interesting. So
really,
that's just the niche that
it,
you chose.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think the difference is when you're not sleeping well because your baby or your toddler is keeping you awake, and I
Mm.
come in with a solution to that, and I say I can teach you how to do that, you're much more motivated because somebody else is interfering with your quality of sleep. But when you're the driver, you're the one in charge, and I'm asking you to make direct change. Somehow that's harder. We can do it when it's somebody else, but we can't, it's much harder to do it when it's ourselves.
Well, no kidding. And it's easier if you've got somebody else to help them, and then it's kind of a two birds, one stone because it helps you at the same time. So
Oh
double
yeah, yeah. A lot of the
motivation at
yeah,
least.
the lot of the foundation or the principles of what I teach parents about making sure, their children are on a schedule, that they're going to bed at the same time every night, that they have a nice calming routine before sleep, are all things that if adults followed suit, they would quickly, probably within 2 or 3 weeks, you would see the quality of your own sleep improve.
What are some benefits of that? What would I expect after those 2 or 3 weeks if I were to make the changes necessary that we'll get into afterwards? But what are the benefits?
Mm-hmm.
What can I expect?
Well, I think, if you wake up feeling fairly refreshed, like everybody has that period, usually it's about 20 minutes or so after you wake up where you're going to feel tired kind of regardless. It's just your body getting, you know, um, rid of the sleep pressure and cortisol's kicking into your system and all of that. But you would notice that you have more stamina through the day, that your focus is improved. Even eating habits tend to improve when we're getting better quality sleep, because when we're sleep deprived, our bodies start craving, refined sugars and carbohydrates to give us that little like kick in energy to keep us going. And so eating habits improve, bodily, all the bodily functions improve. When we look at sleep, we can see now that it affects every single facet of our life, from mental health to physical health.
Every single faucet of our life. Interesting. Do you have a
Mhm,
visual
mhm.
representation of faucets laid out? And
Yeah,
if one's
yeah.
blocked up, kind of like it needs some plumbing, and then the sleep is kind of
Yeah,
the improvement of
you
the sleep could be the plumber.
absolutely. Oh
Interesting.
yeah, absolutely. I might have to add that to my to-do list. Make it visual.
There we go. Okay, well, it was your words, not mine. So it's in there. It's just not conscious yet, which is also
Yeah.
fascinating. Speaking about switching from conscious to unconscious with sleep.
Hmm.
Fascinating topic indeed. Okay, so those are some of the benefits. I like it and I want it. So how can I start? Let's say I take just 1 hour a night in terms of screen time, kind of winding down. It's a good spot to start.
It's a good starting place.
Yeah.
For a lot of people, that's all it takes. But for some people, they're going to find they need more. Melatonin takes about 3 hours to build to a level in which it'll help you fall asleep more quickly and keep you asleep through the night. So, a lot of people will think, oh, well, I'm not sleeping great. I'll just pop a melatonin supplement before bed, and it'll help you fall asleep more quickly, but it's not going to be enough to keep you sleeping through the night. That your body needs time to build it and grow the melatonin level so that you can make it all the way through the night.
Yeah, melatonin's tricky. In Europe, it's a prescribed drug, and here we can just go pick it up. And I had the same
I
thing,
know.
and often overdosed as well because
Yeah.
I mean, if I could be, I have no idea, but from what I've heard, the classic 5 or 10 milligrams of melatonin in a pill is way too much. And
Hmm.
is that true?
It is true. And because it's not really regulated,
Right.
even what's actually in it, they've done studies on, like, 10 different types of melatonin supplements and found that it's very varied as far as like how much is actually in it.
Mm,
Yeah, and most people find that there's a little bit of like a residual, like almost like a little bit of a hangover-y feeling in the
yeah.
morning after melatonin. Like it takes you a lot longer to shake it, just like, cobwebs in the head kind of feeling. And so that's not optimal either, to start your day feeling groggy and, a little bit hungover.
Yeah, there are better ways. I don't mess with that anymore because it's just I was having an issue with waking up in the middle of the night with it, exactly what you said. It didn't last. And then so I, not for me. I'm looking more for the natural ways. So, like an
Hmm.
hour away from the screen before I go to sleep, and then maybe get up to 3 hours if it's not working as well as I'd like it to after a few weeks. Is that you
Yeah.
can kind of
And
build it up slowly?
yes, and then looking too at your like caffeine consumption. A lot of people, well, people's metabolism of caffeine is also very varied. So somebody could have a cup of coffee at noon and it's still going to be affecting their sleep at 9 p.m. Whereas other people can seemingly have a cup of coffee with dinner and still get to sleep. So some people are very sensitive to caffeine. And so I always advise people cut off caffeine at 2 o'clock and see if that makes a difference. And if that's not enough, they might even need to go all the way to 12 o'clock.
Uh-oh, that's no good.
Hmm.
How do you know?
Yeah.
Because you said
I,
it varies. So how do you know if that's you or not?
I think it's just trial and error. Like starting with a conservative cutoff time of like I like 2 o'clock. Um and notice, like, are you falling asleep more easily? Are you staying asleep longer through the night? If you see the benefits of cutting your caffeine at that hour, then the magic, you've found the magic solution. But if it's not, then we need to bump it up to, let's try 1 o'clock and see if we make progress there, and so on.
Okay, all right. All right, so those are a couple of things we can do. What about eating? You say you want to give yourself some time to digest, so you're not doing that through the
Hmm.
night and ruining maybe your initial deep sleep. I had an Aura ring for a while, so I was
Oh yeah.
overeducated really because I found that sometimes I'd wake up feeling terrific and then I'd look on the app and I was like terrible sleep. I was like, what the hell, man? I feel great.
Yeah.
And so I threw the damn thing away. I was like, no, I sold it. I was like, no, 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 no. There's a psychological kind of placebo effect going on here because I thought I felt great, read the app, and then I was like, oh, maybe I do feel bad. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So
Oh yeah, people get, yes, people can get very obsessed with their reading from like the Aura Ring or even their Apple Watch will tell them, the quality of their sleep. And so I'll often ask people to put those things aside while they're trying to work on creating better sleep habits. Because if it adds to your stress level, then that's not helping, right?
yeah.
Because stress plays this really huge piece in not sleeping well. So the more we can minimize your stress levels, the better.
What about the eating wise? How many hours before bed do you recommend we go without eating?
Yeah. Yeah, good question. So, um, if you're too hungry, it's kind of like again finding your sweet spot for how many hours before bed you should stop eating. Because if you haven't eaten enough, then usually you'll wake up around 3 o'clock in the morning and you've sort of run out of stores and it'll almost always cause a wake up. But if you eat right before bed, that also is going to affect your sleep. So a good rule of thumb again for that is about 3 hours before bed.
Okay, all right. Yeah, see, I don't have that issue. I mean, the issue is I'll go to bed hungry, but then when which sucks because I hate going to bed hungry. So then oftentimes I'll be like, all right, so maybe I'll just have a little bit of, I'll cheat a little bit, and then I pay for it the next day, noticeably. But I don't
Right.
notice that I wake up at around 3 or whatever if I'm too hungry. Um, but I also don't eat enough generally, and so because I focus too much on coffee and working too much. So there's
Mm,
yeah, so I gotta make some lifestyle adjustments, I think, here. And maybe the sleep
yes.
would follow, which
Oh,
is
yeah.
creating a virtuous feedback loop because the one improves the other.
It's true, right? It is. And getting enough exercise in your day, getting exposure to daylight is really important. It's kind of all the old familiar tales of how to have a healthy lifestyle. It all kind of really plays and it's a part of it all works together.
Right, it's an ecosystem that's all
Yeah.
symbiotic, right? So what about matching your circadian rhythm with the sun? Do you recommend we get
Mhm.
up and get 5 or 10 minutes of sunlight to kind of just tell the body that
Yeah,
it's time to wake up, and then it kind of pairs up nicely with the nighttime, whereas you were getting rid of the light with the screens and stuff. Um,
absolutely. Yeah, ideally, I would love it if everybody got up and spent about 10 or 15 minutes in daylight. It depends where you live. I know in Canada it's like not daylight sometimes until 9 o'clock in the morning. So it's not always easy, but even if you got out for a little like 20-minute afternoon walk and in the fullness of the sun, that would definitely help.
Hey, I hope you're enjoying the podcast, and I want to let you know that I've got a free book that you can get if you want to tap into more of these resources. And you can get that for free at kylesbook.com. Back to the podcast.
okay, so we've got a few things here. The circadian rhythm, how can we optimize it? Is there
Yeah,
this is an interesting question. You say this all varies. How do we know what our sleep schedule is? There are some people that are, optimized to work during the night as opposed to during the day.
sure.
How do we find that out about ourselves?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And it does vary. Some people are what we would call night owls, right? They tend to do better with later bedtimes and later start times. And if you're lucky enough to be an entrepreneur, then you can carve out your own schedule. Or an early bird, right? You like to get to bed early and wake up with the sun. And it really depends on how how do you feel your best, right? If you're forcing your body into this, like, I got to be in bed by 9 p.m. and I'm going to get up at 6 in the morning or 5 in the morning, and it's hard for you to fall asleep, you don't have a very restful night, you start your day feeling really taxed and already tired. And then you try the latter where you're like, well, let's see if like going to bed at 11 or 12 and then getting up at maybe 8:30 if I feel better there, if things work better for me there, if I fall asleep more quickly, if I feel like I have a more solid night and start my day feeling pretty good, then you know that your body clock falls on the later side. And if you can live there, if you can create a lifestyle where that's okay for you, then that's perfect. There's nothing wrong with that.
I like it. So you can kind of test within 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, either way, and then kind of optimize it over time. It's interesting. A lot of people, it's something we do every single day, ideally, for the vast majority of the population. And so it's like you think we would go about having these tests in place for a couple weeks, a month, to really optimize the rest of our lives in terms of sleep.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting thing. I think a lot of people.
Yeah, because I think societally we believe, especially as adults, like teenagers don't believe this, but as adults we think like I gotta get up and start the day. I gotta make the most of the day. I gotta get to bed, early enough. But for some people that's going, in opposition to where their body clock would like to be.
Yeah, right. Which is kind of fighting against the tide when you can just flow with
It
it
is.
to test it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
What about dreams? Speaking of the unconscious, what about noticing dream patterns to kind of optimize, or even after listening to this or after our conversation, we might have unconscious cues in our dreams tonight that kind of cue to make adjustments symbolically. Are you
Mm.
into, the dream analysis at all?
I mean, not, I don't really do it as part of my job or my career. I'm curious about it just for my own personal curiosity. What does everything mean?
Huh,
But
yeah.
like melatonin, for example, there's lots of studies coming out recently that melatonin can cause nightmares in some people. So, or their dreams become like really vivid to the point of like being creating stress or fear response. So just keeping an eye on like what things lead to a more restless night with bad dreams. I know for myself, I can't watch anything violent or scary. I can't do it any time of day, but I certainly would never do it right before bed. And so just monitoring like what sets you up for success. I mean, a lot of people, this is the craziest thing you could do for your sleep is watch the news right before bed, or
Yeah.
like start scrolling through like social media news channels and things like that. That is toxic for your sleep. It's going to absolutely raise your stress levels. It's going to make falling asleep harder, and it could result in just having a really restless night with some dreams that don't feel so good.
Interesting. I mean, I experimented with the other side of it where I wanted to go into the darkness. So I didn't do it exactly this way, but you could, experiment with watching a scary movie, then examining the dreams and kind of analyzing what you're. I love dream analysis. It's psychologically fascinating to me, and so you could analyze what needs to be unraveled internally based on what's showing itself symbolically. Maybe
Sure.
there's some revealing of unconscious tension that needs to be let loose or integrated, which is
Yeah.
an interesting way of looking at it too. Okay, so what's the number one thing that you'd say well, as opposed to everything that we've talked about already? What's something that we can do that you notice that is something not talked about enough, but should be?
Um, what should people do? I mean, I think creating like a really peaceful sleep sanctuary is more important than
Mm,
people give it credit for. So like just making sure that your bedroom where you spend, a third of your life is calm. It feels lovely. If it's the one room in your house that you just make sure is tidy, have beautiful sheets that feel lovely to get into, have, smells that really provoke
mm,
like calming feelings, and just make it like a nice, cool, dark cave really is what we say is the best for sleep.
mm,
So spending some time just thinking about that, instead of just like throwing your work around and your clothes around and then diving into wrinkly sheets that are all bunched up or whatever it is. Like if you spent time really honoring this place,
mm.
it usually makes your sleep better.
Yeah, what about sleep hygiene? Maybe showering before sleep and then making sure the sheets are perfectly clean. I've got a dog, and so it's easy for
Mm,
the dirt and grime of the world to find itself into the bed. I gotta clean the sheets off to, so
yeah,
that would ruin the sanctuary or at least tarnish
it
it.
would.
And
Yeah.
so what
Yeah.
about the
There,
cleanliness?
I mean, even not e showering or taking a bath before bed, not just to be clean, but like it does have a fairly significant impact on the quality of your sleep.
Hmm.
It you know, getting your body temperature at a nice place where sleep comes easily. It usually relaxes your muscles a little bit to get into a nice warm tub. That these things do help.
So the warm body temperature before bed, that's going to help
Hmm.
from a warm shower,
Yes.
a jacuzzi or something, as opposed to it's not for the cleanliness. I mean, it's a part of it, but it's for
Yeah.
the
It
temperature
feels nice.
regulation. Yeah, and that's
Yeah, it does feel nice. Yeah,
helps you wind down as well. Yeah, definitely.
it does.
Okay, okay. So we've covered a fair bit. What else? What questions should I be asking that I'm not asking that if I were to ask would reveal something that could change somebody's life in terms of altering their sleep and improving it?
I mean, I think a lot of it comes down to priorities. Like, I think, especially in our
Mm.
society where it's like we're driven to produce and work, like you said, and be busy all the time and racing around, kind of having this frantic life. And then, working late into the night and watching junk on TV and putting our sleep down on the bottom of this priority list is a misstep. And
Mm.
it should be honored and treated the same as it would be with like how you what you put in your body and how you move your body. Like it really does affect everything in your life. So just giving it a little bit more uh, like time and attention and honoring it as an important piece of your
Mm.
healthy life would make a big difference. It's too bad that it's become it didn't wasn't always this way, but that it's become sort of the like it gets pushed further and further down. It's like people's last priority, and they just collapse into bed in pure exhaustion at the end of the day, and are lucky to get their 5 hours if they can. And that's that's too bad. Yeah, it's unfortunate if that's how they're treating their sleep.
AKA me. And so we got to make some changes up in here. I love it.
That's
Okay, so
right.
give me the checklist. We went through quite a bit here. Do you have it in your mind? I bet you probably explain relatively the same things to most people. So what's the checklist that we can run through before we kick this off?
Okay, yeah, the checklist, like monitor your caffeine intake, create the power down hour where you turn off all your screens and any unnecessarily lights in your environment, get them off. Have something calming and relaxing that you're doing before bed, making sure your sleep environment is inviting and lovely. Going to bed at the same time every night and trying to wake up at the same time every morning is how our body clocks work best, which is hard for adults, especially on weekends. But if you could do that, and even if you tried it again for a couple of weeks, you would see you would feel better,
What about water
bottom line.
intake?
Well, absolutely. I mean, water's an important function. Just being careful though that you're not drinking too much water right before bed, because then you're gonna have to get up to use the bathroom at some point. But yeah, everyone kind of says that you need about 90 ounces of water in a day. So trying to hit your numbers is important, but then again, tapering off a bit right before bed. Oh, alcohol is another thing. Try
Ah,
not to
yeah.
have, if you're going to have alcoholic beverages, again, try to start with an hour, like no alcohol beverages like that hour before bed. For some people, it needs to be longer. For myself, I need at least 2 hours, or it will affect your sleep later in the night. So you'll probably fall asleep just fine, or even maybe a little bit better than you normally do if you've had a drink. But you're going to, again, wake up around that 3 o'clock hour with a bit of a anxiety mind.
Right. I know personally, I don't drink a lot of alcohol, but when I do, I got to give it at least 5 or 6 hours. Otherwise, I notice that, yeah, you fall asleep easier, but the sleep quality is shit. And then you wake up more tired than when you went to bed, which is interesting.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And then there's the food, which, and all of this is personal. And so this is varies based on your personal context and predispositions. But um,
Mhm.
what's the guideline for the food? Few hours at least. Test it for yourself.
Yeah, 3 is kind of the rule of thumb. Again, you might be fine with 2 hours, but 3 is kind of the golden rule for not eating a big meal. You can have a little snack before bed. Some people, again, need that little bit of protein and complex carbohydrates to keep them
Hmm.
going through the night.
Hmm.
That would be okay, but not a big meal too
Give
close
me
to
some
bed.
examples if somebody's hungry right before they go to bed and like starving to the point where they can't sleep because they're so hungry. What are some things that
Mhm.
would be better to eat as opposed to others?
Yeah, right. So like protein or a complex carbohydrate. So maybe a like piece of whole grain toast with a bit of turkey on it, or um, maybe some high quality crackers with a bit of cheese, something like that. Would be much better for you and help with your sleep quality than, like, let's say eating a bag of chips right before bed or something like that is gonna um, not be a benefit to you at all.
Interesting. Okay, good to know. I love it. All right. So I think we touched on a lot here. Is there anything else you want to add?
Um, yeah, I think, sleep's where it's at. It should be, uh, my wish would be that, and for kids as well, that everybody had a really healthy, uh, lovely relationship with sleep. And a lot of people don't. A lot of people fear it, dread it, stress about it. And just with a little bit of attention, you can change that relationship.
Beautiful. Okay. And where do people find you if they were to search you up?
Yeah, well, the best place to find me is at sleepsense.net. That's my website. And then I'm on Instagram under Sleep Sense and Facebook at Dana Obleman.
Perfect. All right, Dana. I had a blast. I appreciate you sharing your insights. And I feel like this is the 80/20, that if we were to just solve this 20%, the 80 of benefits would follow, which is necessary but difficult. But it's only difficult if we have that belief it will be. And maybe it's about altering your
Exactly.
beliefs and shifting the way that you look at it and giving it more priority, like you said. So it's an
Yeah,
interesting topic, something that needs to be optimized. And I
I
appreciate it.
agree.
So thank you, Dana.
All right. I hope you enjoyed that podcast episode. And if you want to get a free copy of my book, go to kylesbook.com and you can get a copy there. I'll talk with you soon.